Hey there, this keeps getting better. Here's your daily Blue Lagoon soap opera. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it blows my mind. They have revised their statement, and it's been in the press today about the evacuation of the Blue Lagoon. If you are a member of my channel or a subscriber of my channel, then you have seen probably the last two videos about the Blue Lagoon, that the Blue Lagoon has said that they evacuated in time and that everyone was out of the Blue Lagoon when the eruption started. And it was a big headline in the Icelandic newspaper MBL.is. And they posted an interview with Helga Annas-Dottir. She's the manager of sales, operations, and services at the Blue Lagoon. And they were basically just quoting her from her interview. And the headline was that they all evacuated before the eruption. But the reality is it took over 40 minutes to evacuate the Blue Lagoon. And since now there have been videos and video proof of how these evacuations took place, and most importantly, when they started. Walk with me, Tim was in the hotel. He was sleeping in the hotel when the sirens woke him up at 6 a.m. And we know that the Icelandic MET Office has confirmed the eruption has started at 6 a.m. Some say 6:02, 6 a.m. and 2 minutes. But there was no warning for the tourists in the Blue Lagoon. And so whoever called me out and said this is bullshit, it's now proven it's not bullshit. These videos are real. And there was another photographer, Paul Zitka, who was in the Northern Lights, that's even closer to the eruption, but in the Swartsengi area. And he took pictures of them being evacuated. And you can see them on the parking lot with their suitcases, and the eruption is spewing lava behind them. So this is so interesting because about 150 people were inside the Blue Lagoon buildings in Swartsengi when the eruption started last week. And 40 minutes is a lot. And that lava that was coming out of that eruption has basically won the prize as the world's fastest lava, because it was so fast and did flow over the main evacuation road out of the Swartsengi area, the Grindavik road, basically almost cutting off the people there. And now the funny thing is, we were saying, okay, so Grindavik is cut off for a while because this is a huge lava field and it's still hot. You can just take an excavator and push it away. So it's clogged from both sides at the northern part of Swartsengi, but also at the entrance of Grindavik, where the lava has flown on January 14th. So we were all saying, oh, good, this is good. So then maybe they have to keep that lagoon closed for a while, because we're already waiting for the next eruption that's probably happening in about 3 weeks' time. No, they announced today they're basically opening Icelandic time today. And the road Grindavik is not open, but now they're telling tourists to take a detour around, like smaller roads. This makes it even harder to evacuate. But anyways, I wanted to tell you what is happening here. So they have been doing a lot of blah, blah, that the company's works progress is taking into account the new reality, and that the Blue Lagoon personnel is directly connected to the Tetra system of the civil protection. And when it is suspected that earthquakes are starting, evacuation plans are taking. Well, that hasn't really worked so well with the last eruption. And why am I so upset about this? Scientists have said, like a few weeks ago, since the magma chamber is underneath the Swartsengi area, there is a risk of a direct eruption in the Swartsengi area, underneath the hotel, underneath the Blue Lagoon, underneath the power plant, or in some of the fields that are there. But, it starts without warning and then poof, and then that lava is very, very fast and imagining. And since these eruptions don't seem to like daylight. They always happen when it's dark at night. Imagine it, all these people plus employees. The main large evacuation road is blocked, and you have these little roads. What if the eruption is right there where this little road is, and then the lava spreads out so quickly? Where do you go then? Then you're fenced in. Then you have the defense walls, and the eruption is inside, and the main road is blocked. This is just terrible. And so what has been reported that Helga said, you know, the manager of the Blue Lagoon, that this was a so-called soft evacuation where people had the opportunity to pack and take their belongings out of the area. And if the risk is considered higher, it is possible to evacuate in a much of a shorter time. So what more higher risk do you need if the sirens go off at 6 a.m. and you can see the lava spill 80 meters high and everything is red and you can even feel the heat? So this doesn't make sense. And I called it BS, right? And then some people were saying, oh, maybe Walk With Me Tim got the time wrong. No, because when he leaves the parking lot, he films out of his car, and you can see the clock in his car, and it was 6:23 when he was leaving. So then they said just the day before yesterday, also Helga said that the company has successfully adapted to this changed reality. No, I don't think so. I really don't. Sorry. And then she says, in this way, work processes are designed in such a way that the company can close its operations quickly. They've never closed it quickly. They have always waited till the last second. So they were never be proactive. In that way, you can say, well, they had to close it quickly, right? And then she says, but they also want to open quickly and effectively and efficiently. And that's what they're doing. They're opening, right? Everything, the restaurants, the hotels, everything. And she said in that interview, it's important that it goes both ways. And this article, I'll put the link in the description of this MBL article. That is an article that has been released 2 days ago, and I'll look at it again, and now there's at the bottom of it, there's a smaller part that says the news has been corrected. And now listen to this, because this is, I mean, it's too bad that I don't really understand Icelandic. If someone of you does understand Icelandic, please watch that video that's on the bottom, because that's the interview. Because the reporter that wrote that article is Icelandic, right? So how are the chances that you would get that wrong? But I'll read it to you. The news has been corrected. The original headline read, "They evacuated the reservoir before the eruption." And that was wrong, right? So the report also claimed that all hotel guests had left the area when the eruption started. It was a journalist's over-interpretation of the words of a manager at the Blue Lagoon. How can you over-interpret that? I don't, honestly, if it wasn't that tragic and lives would be at stake, this would be just so funny. And, you know, I'm still laughing, although this is such a tragedy, because really? Are we that dumb that we believe that? I mean, the benefit of the doubt, but I just feel that this is ridiculous. I just think since the truth came out, and you know, these days everyone has a phone and they're all filming. I'm sure other tourists did film that too. But since the truth has come out, and you know, I don't know if there were other channels that have criticized that and said, hey, that's not right. You didn't evacuate before the eruption started. I mean, I made 2 videos about that. Now they're doing this there because are they worried that they might lose their credibility with the tourists? I think they have lost it big time, and I don't think that this makes it any better, because I once had someone I was working with, and he was trying to badly damage me with things he did. And then when I caught him, he said that was an automatism. It wasn't him. And I'm like, that was the biggest bullshit I've ever had. And since then, this is a running joke whenever, someone screws up and just, I'm like saying, oh yeah, that has been an automatism, right? So now this continues. So the truth is that people were at the so-called evacuation posts in the area and ready to leave about 40 minutes after the evacuation was announced. So they're still not saying what. So, okay, the truth is that they were at the so-called evacuation post. Most of my viewers have watched Walk With Me Tim's video at the meantime. The sirens took off at 6 a.m. and then he was basically he already had a bug out bag packed with all his valuables. So he was walking in the lobby and there were tourists standing around, and there was a guy pretty chilled out standing behind the front desk, and he was like, yeah, if you're flying out today anyways, just go right to Krysuvik airport, just take your car and leave. And that was it. In this video, you don't see any evacuation post or anything. He gets into his car and he drives out, and then while he drives out, he says, wow, you can feel the heat of that eruption. And he says, wow, now I see it in my back mirror. Like, it was spilling up high. It was in full force. And while he's filming, when he goes to the parking lot to his car, you can see a bus that is loading tourists. So where is the so-called evacuation post? In the area, and they were ready to leave about 40 minutes after the evacuation was announced. But they're still not saying when was the evacuation announced. This is still wishy-washy and still leaves it open so that you might think it went totally cool. So the evacuation was announced at 6 a.m. That's when the sirens started. And the other photographer, Paul Zitska, he was in the Northern Lights Inn, and he said that he was there with a group of photographers, and he says some of the group woke up at around 5:30 because of the earthquakes, right? Not because of sirens. There was no warning. So they woke up, but he says others kept sleeping soundly. And then he says, yeah, they heard knocks on the door so that they should evacuate. It sounds to me that the owner of the Northern Lights Inn felt the earthquakes and kind of was knocking on doors trying to evacuate the people. But I can't confirm it. It's just my suspicion. But in the Blue Lagoon, I'll put the link to Walk With Me Tim's video in the description again. Just watch it. So guys, please explain to me, what does that mean? The truth is that people were at the so-called evacuation posts in the area and ready to leave about 40 minutes after the evacuation was announced. Is the front desk of the Blue Lagoon or the hotel in the Blue Lagoon, is that the evacuation post? I really do not get it. Because as I said, we saw them all just leave on their own. There wasn't any rescue teams on the road to make sure that people would turn into the right direction of Grindavik or Vegur and not south towards Grindavik. And, it's like the photographer says, well, we barely made it out of the road before it was crossed by the lava. He said just shortly after the road was crossed by the lava. So I think the people in the Blue Lagoon that told them, yeah, just drive out there towards Keflavik, they had no idea the lava was coming and flowing that fast. And I don't blame them. This was, not foreseeable that it would flow that fast. But that's why I'm saying, if the scientists they have announced the eruption is imminent so badly, we're not talking about weeks, it's any day, just a few days. Why can't you close down the lagoon and keep it closed so that you don't have to evacuate in the middle of the night again and again, like with the last eruptions? So I think they're fooling us here. And so there's also a statement of Helga Anadottir, the manager of the Blue Lagoon, in that correction of the news. And she says her comments were based on the information that she had at the time, and we apologize for this. Okay, it was based on the information. She's the manager of that place. And she doesn't even know when the sirens went off and when they started to evacuate. And she gives that interview a day or 2 days later and she tells everything went so well. And until then, she still didn't know how it really went. I call that bullshit. Because as the manager of the Blue Lagoon, the second this eruption was going off, you call your staff and you say, how many people are still in there? How's the evacuation going? The eruption's in full force. Are they all out? What's happening? She should even be there, right? And saying that her comments based on the information she had at that time. She didn't give that interview at 6:30 a.m. She gave that a lot later. So really, guys, let me know, are you feeling that they're fooling us, that they're trying, there's damage done and there's trust lost? I mean, I lost my trust in them like 2 eruptions prior because they kept opening it, although the next eruption was imminent, and they even kept, at the one eruption, they opened it the night before the eruption, and then everyone had to be evacuated again. I call this BS. I really do. And I would really like to get your opinion about this. Am I overreacting, or do you believe what they say, that really that 2 things happened? That an Icelandic reporter who speaks Icelandic misinterpreted what she said, like an overinterpretation of the words. That's their first excuse. But then she says that her comments were based on the information she had at the time. So she kind of confirms that she was saying that everyone got out safely. So which is it? She confirms basically she said it, but on the other hand, they're saying the reporter did overinterpret that. So this is colliding information. So as I said, if it wasn't so tragic and if there weren't people's lives at stake, I couldn't stop laughing. This is a daily soap opera. After the video that I released last night, I really thought, okay, that's it about the Blue Lagoon. We've really discussed this. I mean, but then new stuff keeps coming and they're so worried about their income. Of course, I think the Blue Lagoon creates a large portion of Iceland's GDP. And of course, it is an important source of income. And there's investors involved, there's funds involved that own that Blue Lagoon. And we know how it is with big investment companies. They just want their revenue, right? And they put pressure on management and on the organizers. I get that. But you know what? Be open about it and say, we need the income, but we care about our clients, about the tourists' lives more. So we're closing it because we know the eruption is imminent in a few days. We're not trying to squeeze out every last day to the last minute and risk people's lives. And then you could ask for help from other countries, or you can send these tourists to other spas and thermal pools that are there and maybe share the revenue or do something. I mean, the Blue Lagoon must have some kind of insurance, I would suggest, for lost business or something, natural disasters. I don't know if businesses also have a natural disaster insurance or not, but it is mind baffling what they're doing. And you know, with every eruption, that magma chamber underneath is expanding and contracting and expanding and contracting, and it gets more brittle. So with every eruption, in my opinion, the risk that it might erupt right where the Blue Lagoon is increases. And now they're open again, and I bet you they will keep open again. And you know, but the tourists keep flocking in. As soon as they're open, they're basically booked. And I've read your comments. A lot of people are saying, well, then people, it's their own fault. I've heard of people that in Germany, there's an automotive club, ADAC, and they usually give travel warnings and stuff like this. So they said it's completely safe to travel to Iceland. It is safe if you stay out of the areas that are most active right now, and that's the Grindavik area, that's the Swartsengi area, and maybe the Blafjol ski area, because there's the Krysuvik volcanic system and the Blafjol area that has also a volcanic system that seems to be wakening up. And you know, Fagradalsfjall has had 3 eruptions in the last 3 years, basically. So I'd stay away from that, and I think the other areas are stunningly beautiful. So we will have to see what comes next. They're open again, and let me know in the comments, guys. I really want to hear your opinion. If you interpret this in the same way that I do, that this is ridiculous and that they're trying to put a band-aid on the fact that they screwed up again big time. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you could, leave this video a like, and if you haven't yet, subscribe so that you can be part of this daily soap opera. So check out the 2 videos in the end screen. I have put in the videos about the Blue Lagoon there, and check out the description. There's the videos of the photographer and of Walk With Me Tim, and it's really interesting. So see you very soon, guys. Stay safe. Bye and enjoy your coffee. Bye.